A sudden commotion erupted on the bustling street outside an upscale restaurant. The evening air was filled with murmurs, gasps, and the sharp crackle of a police radio. Flashing lights bathed the sidewalk in red and blue as a uniformed officer shoved a well-dressed black man against the side of a patrol car. "Put your hands behind your back. Now," the officer barked, pressing him against the cold metal. The man struggled, his voice filled with urgency but controlled frustration. "Officer, there's been a mistake." "You're resisting arrest," another officer snapped, gripping his arm tighter. Onlookers froze, watching with mixed expressions, some concerned, others indifferent. A few pulled out their phones, recording the scene, their cameras capturing yet another arrest in America. Among the silent spectators, one man stood out. He wore a plain hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. His hands were tucked into his pockets, his posture casual, but his eyes, sharp, assessing, and unmistakably focused on the unfolding situation. No one recognized him immediately. Not yet. The arrested man's briefcase slipped from his grasp, spilling its contents onto the sidewalk. Papers scattered in the wind, a gold-embossed document tumbling to the feet of the hooded figure. He bent down, picked it up, and read it. His face darkened. Then, he took a step forward. "Let him go." His voice was calm, yet it cut through the chaos like a blade. The officer gripping the black man's arm turned, scowling. "Sir, stay back. This doesn't concern you." But the hooded man pulled down his hood. The streetlights illuminated his face, and in an instant, the crowd gasped in recognition. The officers froze. Restaurant staff, who had been watching from the doorway, went pale. Whispers swept through the crowd. "Wait, it's Elon Musk." The moment his name was spoken, everything changed. Musk's expression was unreadable, but his voice was icy. "You're making a mistake. And you don't even realize how big." The officers exchanged uneasy glances, but they didn't release the man. Instead, one of them stiffened and asked, "Sir, do you know this individual?" Musk's jaw clenched. He held up the gold-embossed document for them to see. Then, he spoke one sentence. And what he said changed everything. The moment Elon Musk spoke, the street seemed to fall silent. The flashing police lights reflected off his expression, which was now unreadable, his eyes locked onto the officers. Holding up the gold-embossed document, he spoke with calm authority. "That man is here for a business meeting." "A meeting with me?" The officers froze. The bystanders, some still holding up their phones, gasped in surprise. The energy of the moment shifted, suspicion turned into uncertainty. The man being arrested looked at Musk, his face a mixture of confusion and recognition. He tried to steady his breathing, but the grip of the officers on his arms remained firm. "Sir, step back," one officer finally said, his voice less aggressive but still laced with authority. Musk didn't move. Instead, he studied the officers with a level gaze. "I'm going to ask again," Musk said, his voice even. "Let him go." The lead officer hesitated. He turned to his partner, clearly trying to decide his next move. The restaurant manager, who had been watching from a distance, stepped forward with a sneer. "This has nothing to do with you, sir," the manager said, shaking his head. "This man came in acting suspiciously, making people uncomfortable. We have the right to call the police if we feel there's a threat." Musk's expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened. "A threat?" His voice carried a sharpness that made the restaurant manager flinch. The arrested man, still restrained, finally found his voice. "I walked in," he said, his breathing heavy. "I had a reservation. But the host kept staring at me like I didn't belong. Then, when I asked for the table under my name, they refused to check the system." The crowd listened closely. Some of them nodded, as if realizing what had happened. The man continued. "Then, when I asked for the manager, this guy," he jerked his chin toward the restaurant manager, "showed up and refused to listen." He asked me to leave, and when I didn't, he called security. They never asked my name. Never even checked. Musk exhaled slowly, glancing down at the gold-embossed document in his hand. Then, he turned back to the officers. "Tell me something," Musk said. "When you arrived, did you check his ID? Did you ask him what he was doing here?" The officers shifted uncomfortably. The truth was clear now. They hadn't. They had assumed. Musk turned to the man. "Do you have your ID?" The man nodded toward his briefcase, which lay on the ground, still partly open. Musk bent down, retrieved a leather wallet, and opened it. The crowd gasped as Musk held up a platinum business card, the company logo shimmering under the street lights. Musk read it aloud: Dr. Dwayne Carter, aerospace engineer, lead developer, Neuralink. The reaction was instant. The officers stiffened. The restaurant staff went pale. The manager's smirk vanished. And the crowd? The crowd erupted in whispers. A lead engineer for one of Elon Musk's companies? The same man they had just seen forcibly arrested? One officer immediately let go of Dr. Carter's arm, but the other hesitated. Musk narrowed his eyes. "You see the problem now?" The officer, now visibly nervous, turned to his superior. "Should we, the lead officer, realizing how deep they had screwed up, quickly unlocked the handcuffs." Dr. Carter rubbed his wrists, taking a slow breath. "I had an 8 p.m. meeting with Mr. Musk here at this restaurant," he said, voice calm but firm. "I was early. That's all. But instead of a welcome, I got profiled, humiliated, and arrested." The restaurant manager stammered. This is a misunderstanding. Musk cut him off with a sharp glance. "A misunderstanding?" His voice was dangerously quiet. The restaurant manager opened his mouth again, but Musk raised a hand. "I'm not interested in your excuses," Musk said. "What I want to know is this," he gestured toward the police officers. "How often does this kind of thing happen to people who aren't engineers for my company? People who don't have connections?" The question hung in the air. The officers had no answer. The restaurant staff looked at the ground. And the crowd? The crowd felt the weight of the moment. Then Musk took out his phone. "You all have one chance to make this right." He tapped his screen, calling someone. The police officers shifted uncomfortably as Musk spoke into the phone. "This is Elon Musk. I want an immediate review of what just happened here," he said. "I want this to go public." The officers' faces drained of color. The restaurant manager took a step back. "Sir, please," Musk ignored him. "And I want the restaurant's policies investigated as well. If this is how they treat people, I want to know." The manager's face turned red. Musk finally looked at Dr. Carter. "Let's get out of here." Dr. Carter nodded, picking up his briefcase. Musk turned to the crowd, his eyes scanning the faces watching him. "This isn't just about one mistake," he said. "This is about how easy it is to make assumptions that ruin someone's life." The cameras were still rolling. And the world was about to hear every word. The moment Elon Musk and Dr. Carter walked away from the scene, the world had already begun to change. The video, still being recorded by multiple onlookers, spread like wildfire. It was uploaded to social media within minutes. The headline? Elon Musk witnesses racial profiling, his response shocks everyone. By the time Musk and Dr. Carter reached their car, Musk's phone buzzed nonstop. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and major news outlets were already picking up the story. The comments poured in, "This happens every day. Imagine if Musk wasn't there. That man would be in jail right now." Racism isn't just about words, it's about actions. Those cops assumed he was a threat. The restaurant assumed he didn't belong. I can't believe this still happens. And to a highly respected engineer? Musk did the right thing. But how many people don't have someone like him to stand up for them? As Dr. Carter settled into the passenger seat, he let out a deep sigh. He had been humiliated, treated like a criminal in front of dozens of people, and now his entire story was public. "Are you okay?" Musk asked as he pulled the car onto the road. Dr. Carter hesitated. "Honestly? No." Musk nodded, understanding. "You shouldn't have had to go through that." Dr. Carter rubbed his wrists, still sore from the handcuffs. "If you hadn't been there," he trailed off, shaking his head. Musk glanced at him. "They would have arrested you, thrown you in a cell, and you'd be fighting to prove your innocence." Dr. Carter let out a humorless chuckle. "And by the time I got out, the damage would already be done. My reputation, my career," he sighed. "People don't realize how hard it is to come back from an accusation, even if it's false." Musk tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He had seen brilliant minds crushed by bias, ignorance, and injustice before. But this? This was personal. His phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen. An unknown number. He answered. "Musk." A familiar voice spoke. "Mr. Musk, this is Chief Reynolds with the City Police Department." Musk didn't reply right away. He just waited. The chief cleared his throat. "I heard about the incident tonight. I want to personally assure you that we are looking into the actions of our officers. This is not how we want our department represented." Musk wasn't impressed. "Are you calling because it's the right thing to do?" Musk asked, "or because the video is going viral, and now it's a PR problem?" The chief hesitated. That was all Musk needed to hear. "We're committed to addressing this," the chief finally said. "We'd like to speak with Dr. Carter," and Musk cut him off. "You want to speak with him? You had your chance when he was standing in front of you, handcuffed and humiliated." A pause. Then the chief tried again. "I understand your frustration, Mr. Musk." "No," Musk snapped. "You don't. But you will." He hung up. Dr. Carter arched an eyebrow. "So, they're in damage control mode?" Musk smirked. "Looks like it." Dr. Carter leaned back against the seat. "So what now?" Musk tapped his fingers against the steering wheel, his mind already working. "Now," he said. "Now, we make sure this never happens again." The fallout begins. The next morning, the world woke up to chaos. Every major news outlet had picked up the viral video. CNN headline, "Elon Musk confronts racial profiling, calls for action." BBC News, "Neuralink engineer wrongfully arrested, Elon Musk intervenes." Fox News, "Restaurant faces backlash after discriminatory incident." And then there was Twitter. Musk's simple tweet at 7 a.m. ignited the firestorm even further. Bias. Injustice. Assumptions. How many lives have been ruined because of this? I have an idea. Stay tuned. It racked up over 500,000 likes in under an hour. Meanwhile, the restaurant owner was in full panic mode. The online boycott campaign had begun. People were leaving thousands of one-star reviews, condemning the establishment. By noon, reservations plummeted by 80%. At 1 p.m., the restaurant issued a public apology. But it was too little, too late. Social media users weren't buying it. They're only sorry because they got caught. Did they even apologize to Dr. Carter directly? What about the police? What are they doing about this? Meanwhile, Dr. Carter was being bombarded with interview requests. He refused them all. Instead, he met with Musk in his private office. "A new opportunity? You're not going to speak to the media?" Musk asked as they sat across from each other. Dr. Carter shook his head. "No. This isn't about me." Musk studied him. "Then what do you want?" Dr. Carter leaned forward. "I want to make sure that the next person in my position doesn't need a billionaire to step in and save them." Musk smiled. "Good." Then, he slid a document across the table. Dr. Carter raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" Musk folded his hands. An opportunity. Dr. Carter picked up the document and read the title aloud. The Fair Access Initiative, a new vision for equal opportunities in tech and business. His heart skipped a beat. Musk leaned back in his chair. I want to create something real. A program that eliminates bias in hiring, in training, in everything. You're going to help me build it. Dr. Carter looked at Musk. You really mean this? Musk nodded. I do. Dr. Carter exhaled, staring at the paper in his hands. This was bigger than him. This was a chance to change lives. And he wasn't going to waste it. What happens next? How will the restaurant and police department react to the growing backlash? What is Musk's full plan for the Fair Access Initiative? Will Dr. Carter accept the offer and step into a new role of leadership? The morning after the incident, the world had changed. Dr. Carter woke up to an inbox overflowing with messages. Some were from people he knew, colleagues, mentors, old friends, but most were from strangers. People who had seen the video. This happened to me last year. No one believed me. Thank you for speaking up. I've been in the same situation. No Elon Musk around to save me, though. You're inspiring, Dr. Carter. Don't let them silence you. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to respond to them all. But where would he even start? As he rubbed his temples, his phone buzzed. Musk. He sighed, then answered. Yeah? You seeing this? Musk asked, his voice casual, but sharp. Carter let out a dry chuckle. Hard to miss. Good, Musk said. Because we're not done yet. Carter frowned. What do you mean? Get dressed, Musk said. I'll send a car. Click. Carter stared at the phone. Musk hadn't even given him a chance to argue. The aftermath, meanwhile, across town, the restaurant owner was in full meltdown mode. His phone rang nonstop. His inbox was flooded with refund requests. Customers were canceling reservations left and right. On social media, the backlash refused to die down. The hashtag Boycott Avenue Steakhouse was trending worldwide. By noon, his lawyer sat across from him, shaking his head. You need to issue another statement. The owner's face was red with frustration. We already apologized. His PR manager sighed. Your apology was weak. You need to say something stronger. Something personal. The owner slammed his fist on the desk. I'm not groveling to the internet. His lawyer leaned forward. You don't have a choice. Silence. Then, the PR manager pushed a laptop toward him. This is what you're going to say. The owner gritted his teeth. But he had no other option. The police department faces the pressure meanwhile. At the city's police headquarters, the chief of police, Chief Reynolds, sat in a tense meeting with his team. They were under fire. The video had exploded. The mayor had personally called him, demanding an explanation. Public trust in the department was shattered. How do we fix this? One officer asked. Chief Reynolds leaned forward, his jaw tight. We start by admitting we screwed up. His officers stiffened. They weren't used to hearing their chief talk like this. But one of them started. Reynolds held up a hand. No excuses. No spinning the story. No pretending it was a misunderstanding. We need to take responsibility. Because if we don't, this department will never recover. The room was silent. Finally, Reynolds sighed and rubbed his face. Call a press conference. The officers looked at each other. A press conference? That meant admitting guilt publicly. It meant putting their reputation on the line. But what choice did they have? Musk's bigger plan. Back at Musk's office, Dr. Carter sat across from him, arms crossed. You really think one initiative will change things? Carter asked. Musk leaned back in his chair, smirking. No. But it's a start. Carter sighed. People are mad now. But in a month? They'll move on. This will become just another news cycle story. Musk tapped his fingers on the desk. Not if we give them something bigger to focus on. Carter raised an eyebrow. Which is? Musk slid a folder across the desk. Carter picked it up and read the title. The Fair Access Initiative, Breaking Barriers in Business, Tech, and Education. Musk leaned forward. I don't just want to talk about injustice, Carter. I want to do something real. And I want you to run it. Carter's eyes widened. Run it? He repeated. Musk nodded. You saw the response. People don't just want apologies. They want solutions. Carter hesitated. Musk, I'm an engineer. I build things. I don't run social justice programs. Musk's smirk returned. You build things? Good. Then build this. Carter swallowed. This wasn't a small job. This was a massive opportunity. A chance to actually change lives. But could he do it? He exhaled, looking Musk in the eye. If we do this, Carter said, we do it right. No PR stunts. No empty promises. Musk nodded. Agreed. Carter glanced down at the folder in his hands. Maybe, just maybe. This was exactly where he was meant to be. The pressure mounts that evening, as Carter and Musk finalized details for the Fair Access Initiative. The rest of the world was still reeling from the aftershocks of the viral event. At 6 p.m., the restaurant owner finally released a second apology. We deeply regret the incident that occurred at our establishment. We take full responsibility for the unjust treatment of Dr. Carter and are committed to educating our staff to ensure this never happens again. The comments? Brutal. You're only sorry because you're losing money. Why didn't you check his reservation before calling the cops? Too late. We're never coming back. The damage was done. By the end of the day, the restaurant's investors pulled out. By the end of the week, the restaurant closed down permanently. But the bigger pressure was on the police department. At 8 p.m., Chief Reynolds stood before a row of reporters at a press conference. The world was watching. He cleared his throat and faced the cameras. I stand before you today not to make excuses, but to take full responsibility for the actions of my officers. What happened to Dr. Carter should never have happened. This department has a duty to serve and protect all citizens, regardless of their background. And we failed. Effective immediately, we are launching a full investigation into the incident. The officers involved have been placed on administrative leave. And we are committing to a complete overhaul of our training procedures to ensure bias does not interfere with justice. The room exploded with questions. One reporter asked, will the officers be fired? Reynolds hesitated. That will depend on the investigation. But let me be clear, there will be consequences. Another reporter asked, what do you say to the people who no longer trust your department? Reynolds exhaled. Trust isn't given. It's earned, he said. And we have a lot of work to do. As he walked off the stage, his phone buzzed. A text from Musk. Step 1, accountability. Let's talk about Step 2. The turning point. Dr. Carter sat in his apartment, scrolling through news reports. The police were finally being held accountable. The restaurant was gone. But the real fight? The bigger fight? That was just beginning. His phone rang. Musk. Carter picked up. You ready? Musk asked. Carter took a deep breath. Then he nodded. Yeah, he said. Let's build something better. What happens next? Will the police department follow through on their promises? What will Musk and Carter create with the Fair Access Initiative? Will the world embrace real change, a new beginning? 2 weeks had passed since the night everything changed. The incident outside the restaurant had gone beyond viral, it had sparked a movement. People weren't just talking about the injustice Dr. Carter faced, they were demanding action. And that's exactly what Elon Musk intended to give him. Inside the sleek glass walls of Tesla's headquarters, Musk and Dr. Carter sat at a conference table, surrounded by some of the brightest minds in technology, business, and social reform. The meeting was about one thing and one thing only: launching the Fair Access Initiative. Musk leaned forward, hands folded. "We're not just throwing money at the problem. We're rebuilding the system from the ground up." The team nodded. They had been working non-stop, analyzing hiring data, education gaps, systemic barriers. But Carter wasn't convinced yet. He glanced at the proposals on the table, then looked at Musk. "This is good, but we need more." Musk raised an eyebrow. "Go on." Carter turned to the team. "A program like this will help, but it won't fix the core issue. People make assumptions. The officers assumed I was a criminal. The restaurant assumed I didn't belong. That won't change unless we attack the root of the problem." The room was silent for a moment. Musk nodded slowly. "You're saying this isn't just about hiring opportunities. It's about perception." "Exactly," Carter said. "If we want real change, we need to reshape how people see success, intelligence, and worth." Musk smirked. "Then let's change the entire conversation." And with that, the Fair Access Initiative became more than just a program, it became a movement. The world reacts. The announcement was everywhere. CNN headline: Elon Musk and Dr. Carter launch Fair Access Initiative, a new era of opportunity? BBC News: Musk moves beyond business, tackling discrimination in tech. Fox News: Can Musk's initiative actually change hiring bias? The internet exploded. Support poured in from industry leaders, activists, and everyday people. This is what real leadership looks like. About time we see some action, not just words. Elon Musk doesn't just talk, he builds. This could be huge. Of course, not everyone was happy. Some critics accused Musk of being performative. A billionaire thinks he can fix racism? Give me a break. This is just PR, watch him forget about it in a month. Carter expected the backlash. But Musk? He didn't care. Instead of responding, he kept building. The first major test a week later, the first official event for the Fair Access Initiative was set to take place, a tech recruitment event, designed to hire talent from underrepresented communities. Hundreds of hopefuls lined up outside the conference center in downtown LA. Carter stood inside, watching his company set up booths. "This is bigger than I expected," he muttered. Musk grinned. "Good. Let's make it even bigger." But just as the event was about to start, a problem arose. Outside the venue, protesters had gathered. They held signs that read, "Merit over quotas. No special treatment. Hire the best, not the politically correct." A small crowd, but loud enough to attract the media. Carter sighed. "I knew this was coming." Musk glanced outside. "Let's talk to them." Carter's eyes widened. "What?" Musk smirked. "You want to change minds? Let's start right now." Before anyone could stop him, Musk walked straight outside. The reporters rushed forward, cameras flashing. The protesters stiffened as Musk approached. He stopped a few feet from them and crossed his arms. "All right," Musk said, voice calm but firm. "Talk to me. What's the problem?" A man stepped forward, scowling. "You're giving jobs to people just because of their race. That's not fair." Musk tilted his head. "Is that what you think this is?" The man folded his arms. "Yeah. Why not just hire the best person for the job?" Musk nodded. "I agree." The man blinked, caught off guard. "Wait, what?" "I agree," Musk repeated. "We should always hire the best person for the job. But tell me, if the best person never gets a chance to apply because they were ignored, assumed incompetent, or never given access to education, are we really hiring the best?" The protester hesitated. Musk pressed on. If two people have the same talent, but one of them was denied interviews based on their name, their background, or their school, is that fair? The man's jaw tightened. I guess not. Musk shrugged. That's what this is about. Not lowering standards. Not handing out jobs. Just making sure the right people even get the chance to compete. Silence. The reporters leaned in, waiting. The protester scratched the back of his neck. I never thought about it like that. Musk clapped him on the shoulder. You should. Then, without another word, he walked back inside. The media exploded with coverage. And just like that, the conversation shifted. The next step, inside the venue, Carter looked at Musk. You really like throwing yourself into fire, don't you? Musk grinned. I find it's the fastest way to clear the smoke. Carter chuckled. Well, let's see if we can turn all this heat into something real. Musk nodded. Let's go. And with that, the Fair Access Initiative officially launched. For Carter, this wasn't just an event. This was a mission. He was no longer the man who had been arrested in front of a restaurant. He was the man who was about to change the future. What happens next? Will the Fair Access Initiative succeed? How will companies react to this new approach? Can Musk and Carter change the way hiring is done forever? The first hurdle, the Fair Access Initiative, was no longer just an idea, it was real. Companies had signed up. Talented candidates showed up in droves. The launch event had been a massive success. But now, the real challenge began. The initiative wasn't just about one event, it was about changing an entire system. And not everyone was on board. Inside Neuralink's headquarters, Carter and Musk sat in a high-level meeting with some of the biggest corporate partners. Some were excited. Some were skeptical. And some? They were waiting for an excuse to walk away. We love the concept, one executive said, adjusting his tie. But we have to be realistic. If we start hiring people just to meet a diversity quota, Carter cut him off. That's not what this is. The executive raised an eyebrow. Isn't it? Carter leaned forward. Tell me something. When your company hires, do you post jobs publicly or do you mostly rely on internal recommendations? The executive hesitated. Carter nodded. Right. Now think about this, if the people making those recommendations all come from the same background, what happens? Musk smirked. You keep hiring the same type of people. Carter continued. That's not meritocracy. That's just a closed circle. Silence. The executive cleared his throat. So, what exactly are you suggesting? Carter pulled up a slide on the projector. The Fair Access Commitment, breaking barriers without lowering standards. Musk leaned back, arms crossed. Simple. You open up your hiring process. No backroom deals. No favoritism. Every qualified candidate gets a real shot. Another executive frowned. And if they're not qualified? Carter met his gaze. Then they don't get the job. But at least they had the chance to compete. That's the difference. A murmur spread across the room. Some executives nodded. Others still looked unsure. Finally, one of them leaned forward. Let's say we agree to this. How do we implement it? Musk smiled. We already built the system. He gestured at a tablet. Carter tapped the screen, revealing a new hiring platform. AI-driven, bias-free screening. It hid names, addresses, and backgrounds. So recruiters would only see skills and qualifications. The executives sat up. This is interesting, one of them admitted. Musk smirked. Told you. We're not here to play games. We're here to fix the system. And just like that, the first major companies signed on. The backlash begins, but as with any change, not everyone welcomed it. Within days, corporate lobbyists, traditional hiring firms, and conservative media outlets started pushing back. Headlines rolled in: Musk's diversity plan, disrupting business or disrupting merit? Tech billionaire thinks he can fix discrimination, critics say it's just PR. Fair access or reverse discrimination? Carter sighed as he scrolled through the news. Here we go. Musk, sitting across from him, didn't even look up. Let them talk. Carter frowned. Aren't you worried about the backlash? Musk grinned. The best way to kill bad arguments? Prove them wrong. And that's exactly what they set out to do. The proof: over the next 3 months, the Fair Access Initiative rolled out across industries. Tech, finance, engineering, dozens of companies joined. And the results? Undeniable. Productivity skyrocketed. New hires brought in fresh ideas that boosted innovation. Retention rates improved. Employees thrived in more diverse, inclusive workplaces. Profits grew. Companies that signed on saw better results than those that didn't. The data spoke louder than any debate. And then? The biggest moment of all. A major investment firm, one that had initially criticized the initiative, was caught in a hiring discrimination scandal. Leaked emails showed that recruiters were intentionally filtering out candidates based on their background. It became a national story. And suddenly? The same critics who had called Musk's plan unnecessary were now scrambling to save face. Musk leaned back in his chair, watching the news. I love it when the universe proves me right. Carter chuckled. You're enjoying this way too much. Musk shrugged. I like winning. The final test, but just when everything seemed to be going in the right direction. A new problem arose. It came in the form of a high-profile lawsuit. A former executive from one of the biggest corporations sued the Fair Access Initiative, claiming it was unfair to traditional hiring practices. The media exploded. Musk's initiative faces legal battle, will it survive? Carter sat in Musk's office, reading through the lawsuit papers. This guy is claiming we're making hiring too fair. Musk laughed. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Carter sighed. It's still a problem. If they win, they could force companies to pull out. Musk's smirk faded. Then we make sure they don't win. The courtroom showdown, the trial became a media circus. On one side, the traditional hiring executives who wanted to keep the system the same. On the other, Musk, Carter, and a team of brilliant lawyers. The prosecution argued. Musk is forcing companies to change their hiring process in a way that gives certain groups an advantage. The defense fired back, no. We're ensuring companies don't overlook talented people just because of bias. There's no advantage, just fairness. The turning point? A key witness, an employee who had been rejected multiple times before getting hired through the initiative. He stood before the court. I applied to this company 5 times and never got a call back. But when I applied through Fair Access, I got the interview. You know why? Because they finally saw my qualifications instead of just my name. The jury listened. And when the verdict came in? Musk and Carter won. The initiative was legally protected. The fight was over. And history was made. The world changes a year later. The Fair Access Initiative was standard practice. Companies across industries adopted bias-free hiring. More people from all backgrounds got the opportunities they deserved. And Dr. Carter? He wasn't just an engineer anymore. He was a leader. A voice for real change. At a gala celebrating the initiative's success, Carter stood beside Musk, looking out at the room filled with people whose lives had changed. This started because you stood up for me, Carter said. Musk shook his head. Nah. This started because you didn't back down. Carter smiled. Guess we both did something right. Musk smirked. Yeah. But let's not stop here. Carter raised an eyebrow. What's next? Musk grinned. You'll see. Because for them, this was just the beginning. What happens next? How will Musk and Carter continue redefining the business world? What new challenges will arise? Will other industries follow their lead? A year later, a new world, the Fair Access Initiative, had exceeded all expectations. What had started as a fight for fairness had turned into a revolution. Corporate hiring changed. Biases were exposed and corrected. Qualified candidates who were once overlooked were now thriving in industries they had been shut out from. And yet, despite all the progress, there were still skeptics. The final challenge: Musk and Carter sat in a private meeting with world leaders, policymakers, and billionaires. This was the next step, bringing fair access into global policy. This works in business, a government official admitted, flipping through the data. But we need to prove that it can work in education, healthcare, and politics. Musk smirked. Then let's prove it. Carter nodded. We've already built the system. Now, we expand it. They had already seen what was possible. Now, they were going to take it even further. The moment of truth: Musk's phone buzzed. A news alert. His biggest critic, a media mogul who had opposed fair access from the start, had been caught manipulating hiring data in his own company. The headlines exploded. The loudest voice against fair access was secretly rigging the system. Hypocrisy exposed: Fair Access Initiative proves its point. Meritocracy or favoritism? The truth comes out, Musk laughed. Oh, this is just beautiful. Carter smirked. The irony writes itself. This wasn't just a victory. It was undeniable proof that the system had been broken all along. Now? It was never going back. The final lesson: a few weeks later, Musk and Carter stood on stage at a global conference, addressing thousands. People from every industry watched as they spoke. Carter stepped forward. This isn't just about me, he said, voice steady. It's about every person who was ever ignored, every talent that was wasted because of someone else's bias. He looked out at the crowd. Meritocracy isn't real if only certain people get a seat at the table. It's only real if everyone has the same chance to sit at that table. Musk grinned. He took the mic. And if the table is full? He asked. We build a bigger table. The crowd erupted in applause. Carter glanced at Musk. That was good. Musk smirked. I have my moments. As the crowd cheered, one thing became clear: this wasn't just a movement. It was a legacy. And it was only the beginning. Final life lesson: power isn't in money. Power isn't in status. Power is in standing up for what's right, even when no one else does.